Yeah.
Right. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us again at this The Voice of the Hope Media, where we strive daily to educate, empower, and inspire by giving it a voice. Today, we have a package that I don't want to put the cart before the horse. I want you all to enjoy what we have today. We have, a citadel of knowledge and a plethora of experience from almost all walks of life. Just sit back and enjoy, because today we are going to be touching some very, very important and critical topic. Break the bias. It is our topic for today. However, I'm not going to be doing this alone. I have a co-host with me today. The eloquent, the elegant, the soft-spoken, the articulate, Emily and Grace. And I think she is best to introduce herself.
Women's rights should be celebrated every day. And it's just an opportunity to always remember that we are stronger together. It is what celebrating us throughout the 365 days in a year. We all know the theme for the International Women's Day this year is Break the Bias. We are doing all they can to end prejudice, stereotypes, discrimination facing women. My question is, are you ready to challenge gender stereotypes and biases? Are you ready to call out gender actions and as Million Grace? And it's a pleasure to be your co-host for tonight.
You are absolutely welcome. So we're going to start straight away with a word of prayer. And I don't know if we have Uncle Jerry yet to usher us in.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, everybody. Breaking the bias is about respect, and we respect each other because we're actually all children of God. Regardless of where we come from, regardless of our religions, our beliefs, we're all created by God, and we should respect each other for that reason. So let us pause just for a few seconds and think about how we respect each other, and we pray that this meeting will help us to become better people. Amen.
Amen and amen. Thank you so very much, Uncle Jerry. It seems today it go wuru wuru for you. It's just joy for me to sit here and listen to our own Auntie Felicia live and direct. He needs no introduction. Auntie Felicia, we're ready for the wuru wuru.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Grace, for that introduction. First, I should apologize for my background. So there is no power in Limbe. And so I had to make do by just leaning against this wall so I can get direct light. So I apologize, but I'm sure that any background where I sit in front will look beautiful because I'm the one. So yes, break the bias. I should first of all start by saying I am Kwo Elonge when I'm not Auntie Felicia. So I don't on a daily go out as Auntie Felicia, I go out as Kwo Elonge. Auntie Felicia is a comedic character which I created. And the reception has been dumbfounded. It's been incredible so far. When I was asked to be part of this, I felt incredibly honored to be part of this because this is such a huge platform. I really admire the work being done here. And so I just had to jump on it. I was asking myself when I was asked to do this, what am I really breaking? How do I experience bias, or how do I even perpetrate it? And it dawned on me, I think about 2 months ago, when somebody commented under one of my skits and asked me if I could only be funny dressed as a woman. It seems like a question then, like just a question out of curiosity. But then when I began getting more of those questions, I realized how loaded the question was, which was that I have friends and colleagues who actually do comedy and cross-dress, female comedians, and they are always considered to be cool. And I cross-dress as a woman, and there is this, question mark, whether it's about sexuality, whatever. But the bigger thing that I realized was that the question was a direct slap on women. So though it was asked to me, it was suggestive of the fact that, well, if you look at the way the question has been couched when it comes to men who dress like women for comedic purposes and women who dress as men for same purposes, that there was this underlying thought that it was debasing for a man to do that, to aspire in any way to be like a woman, to act like a woman, even if it were for comedic purposes. And that when a female comedian did that, it was cool because manliness is something which the women should actually aspire to become. It seems like there was this rank order in this hierarchy in the genders. And so I began thinking deeply about it, and it dawned on me that I had to do more in terms of breaking the bias in terms of the perception of who or what a woman is. So what I have been doing is pushing through with my art, trying to show the layers, trying to make society understand more and embrace women for how varied they are, try to show how instrumental women are to society, because ultimately that's something we take for granted in our society. So in my little way as a comedian, just experiencing that showed me the different ways in which women are put down and looked down on. And I decided that I had to, contribute towards, essentially breaking the bias. So yeah, I think I have 5 minutes. I hope I haven't taken too long.
No, you haven't actually. You're actually well within your time. And thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure we're going to be hearing again from you. And thank you so much for taking our time. We understand some of the difficulties and challenges that we face back in Cameroon, and you've made up your mind that you were going to be part of this virtual session today. So we really do appreciate it. And thank you, and stay tuned. We know for sure we're going to possibly come back to you again. Moving on now to our next guest. And today we are going to be joined by Bita, and she is going to talk to us about breaking the biases women face bringing up disabled children.
Yes, hello everyone, and thank you so much for the invitation. I'm very grateful to be here and celebrate International Women's Day with you all. So first of all, I would like to give a definition of bias, and bias is the inclination or the prejudice or against one person or a group, especially in a way that is considered to be unfair. These biases are created because we perceive information about individuals or groups to be true, but we don't really critically analyze them. And these are created because of our knowledge, our society, and information from our families and the media as well. In the last 50 to 80 years, there have been great advances, and lots of biases have been broken down, but there is still many that exist today. And these biases and labels and stereotypes, as they are still commonplace, we need to challenge our preconceptions and widen our view and acceptance of others as well as ourselves. And events like this today, it's very important that exist, and very grateful to be here and be part of this. So I had been struggling with low self-esteem and confidence for a very young age. And then the doctors broke a very bad news to me and my husband that our little baby I was carrying for 9 months had a horrific diagnosis called epidermolysis bullosa. So I felt even more inadequate and my sense of self crushed even further. I only hung on in there for my little superhero because he needed me. His condition affects his entire skin and some of his internal organs, where he blisters and wounds from the slightest friction. They're also known as butterfly children. So they are very fragile, just like the butterfly's wings. So we were told he is not likely to make it to even to his first birthday. But 6 years on, he's still fighting with us, very strong. So I'm sure if there are any parents in the audience, they can relate to the dreams that you have for your children before they are born. So the moment we were given this diagnosis, all our dreams were crushed. My challenge is just one of many million women around the globe who bring up disabled children, but the experiences and the struggles and the biases are very similar. So you can imagine the pain and the grief that moment brought to us. In the quest to find answer, why did this happen to us? I was blamed to cause his disability by simply being a woman who was carrying him for 9 months. Anything I did while I was pregnant was seen as a potential cause for my son's condition, such as working in a hospital, drinking honey, eating nuts, and the list could go on. The fact that his condition is recessive and they are caused by both genes from mom and dad, these were completely disregarded by his family. But I think it's still a common bias in families around the world that women are majorly to be blamed for giving birth to a child with disabilities. I felt it was viewed that having a child with disabilities was seen as a punishment and a great misfortune by those who were very close to us. And I would definitely like to challenge this. Our son has challenged me and everyone around us in ways that we cannot really comprehend. And having a child with disabilities should be seen as a blessing, not a curse. I'm sure the universe and God has a greater purpose for their existence. Women bringing up disabled children face endless challenges. You can imagine every time you meet someone, you have to go through what your child's condition is, how they are, and why they are behaving differently, why they cannot play the same way, and so on. Each time we are reminded of the harsh reality that they are different and unknown. Mothers of these special children need to be very creative so they can break down many barriers. I personally have spent endless hours figuring out how to enable my son to access simple everyday things that women with healthy children would take for granted. For example, simplifying suitable clothes where the seams will not cause him blisters, finding and adapting everyday items so they don't injure his skin, figuring out how to access walks and activities that are easy for healthy children. Even finding a school that could accommodate our son meant endless assessments by professionals, a booklet of instructions, hours of phone calls, negotiating and advocating for him. When we moved homes recently, it took 4 months for him to start in a new school, while a healthy child would be in school within a week. My article on this topic provides a more in-depth picture of how everyday simple things most of us don't even think about can be a huge challenge for a child with disabilities, and of course, their parents too. In hope to improve the well-being of families affected by disabilities, I ventured onto the road of entrepreneurship. And while I was developing leadership and coaching skills, I realized that I need to challenge my own biases and stop the negative self-talk. This helped me to start a journey of self-discovery, self-acceptance, and self-compassion. I truly believe that self-discovery and self-acceptance is the first step to challenge biases women face when bringing up children with disabilities. First, we need to learn to accept ourselves for who we are and learn to accept our children. It is okay to be different. It is okay not to be like the majority. It is okay to be quiet and reserved, have a unique appearance. It is okay for our children to make noises that are different. It is okay that they are not perfect as they are in our dreams, and so on. We and our children don't need to look like or be like someone else. We need to aim to become the best version of ourselves, not a bad copy of someone else. We need to invest in ourselves and focus more on the things we and our children are good at and help them to find their passion. And the final key element for women, to practice self-compassion and self-care. So we have the strength, energy, and courage to continue to stand up for our disabled children and to advocate for them and challenge the many biases that still surround us. Thank you so much.
Wow, thank you so very much, Beata. You are beautiful from the outside and you have been very vulnerable with us. We don't take that for granted. But beyond that, beneath that, what I can see is a tough mom from the inside. You are tough on the inside, and we take this opportunity to celebrate you and many others who are out there smiling from the outside, but going through a lot. Thank you so very much for being vulnerable, as I said. And since we are still talking about discrimination, people put blames on people for things that happen to them, I would just want us to move over to our next speaker, Dr. Ajo Cornelia, and we continue with the topic discrimination. And to Dr. Ajo, I just want to ask you this: how does discrimination manifest within our groups, and why do you think it needs to be addressed?
Discrimination manifests in our groups in many different ways. And the first thing to do is to raise awareness. When I was invited to participate in this, I started reflecting on the many things that happen in our communities at work that we never realized that they are discriminatory. We live in a bias-free society. So today, I'm sorry that I extended your question. I just started answering your question and deviating from what I had, my train of talking, but however, I am trying to touch on the points that I would have talked about. Tonight, I want us to break these biases. I want us to raise awareness that being natural is still beautiful. Being natural is beautiful. You don't have to be fair in complexion before you are beautiful. You don't have to, do anything artificial in order to be beautiful, because you are creating in the young, you are a mother, you are creating in your young children that are growing up that, look, this color is not the best color. Let me change my color. So it's about us. We are the ones that create the biases because we don't know that there are biases in themselves. So we need to be more aware. Whatever thing you do, always reflect. Think about how other people look at it. See if that is a generally acceptable thing and if that is something that can be upheld. Otherwise, it will be, if you reflect on it and you see that it's something that you are holding on to it because you are you, and that if anybody in that situation will hold that thing in the same way, then you give it a tick. If it's something that somebody else comes along and see, oh, why did this person do this? Take it off. So let us be aware that the little things that we do, that we think we are doing well, they are biased in themselves. Having a child, getting up today and saying, oh, this is good for John, this is good for John. And you get it and go and give to that child. Meanwhile, Mary is there and you don't give to Mary, it's bias in itself. So you have the children, treat them the same, ask them what they want, and you give it to them, because the minute you start favoring one over another one is bias in itself. It is something that you are planting. It's something that they will grow up to see. If you start using this body cream because you want to be fairer, your daughter is there thinking, oh, this my color is not good. So being black is not good. And you are planting that seed in that child. So encourage your children, encourage friends. If you see someone who is thinking that, oh, I have to do this to be better, I want to do this to make, not because you have a disease condition on your body, because you just want to do this because you feel that if you don't do it, you will not be better, that is discriminatory in nature. Because, you know, you are beautiful the way you are as a woman. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much for that discourse, Dr. Adjoa. And so far, it's been amazing so far as we've had our speakers coming out to share, and it's been really rich. For those joining us, we are the Voice of Hope Media, where we strive to educate, empower, and inspire by giving it a voice. So far, we've heard from Bita, who has given us a little bit of a TED talk on how the bias against women who are dealing with disabled children and how we should become creative, and also moving on to become tenacious in our approach in finding out who she really is. And the journey has really been amazing. And thank you so much, Bita, for that one. And then we moved on to Dr. Adjoa, who's just informed us on the importance of creating an awareness. Some cultures and some societies where the bride price for fairer women are higher than those with darker skin, and some of these little discriminations that go on even within the working environment. So far we've had a discourse that is quite deep and enriching, and we thank you so much. Moving on to our next speaker, Nicole Etienne. My question now is, so based on the previous speakers and your experience, do you think that some of these elements get manifested within the realm of post-traumatic growth as well?
Yes, sorry, ma'am. I think I'm losing my voice a bit, but with post-traumatic growth, we've got different factors. Think about the trauma aspect of things. So yeah. I just want to say hello to everyone. It's lovely to be here and to meet everyone. Today I'm talking about breaking the bias of Black women and post-traumatic growth. Excuse me for my voice, because I think I'm losing my voice a bit. I just talk about psychological trauma. And first of all, and this is the result of extraordinarily stressful events. And that could be natural disasters, death of a loved one, pandemic, serious illness, divorce, relationship issues, violence, and so on. And this can leave individuals with psychological and emotional symptoms like guilt, shock, confusion, anxiety, fear, mood swings, and in some cases, experience post-traumatic stress disorder. And trauma symptoms typically last from a few days to a few months, fading as you process the unsettling event. Recovering from trauma takes time, with many individuals and communities healing at their own pace. So it's important, you know, going back to your question, we have to be very, very careful how we bring up our children with regards to colorism, because it's a real issue. And with Beta's, you know, sometimes that trauma, she talked about, you know, having her child, you know, when she was pregnant, and the impact of that. These can be traumatic experiences. An additional trajectory in the aftermath of trauma is post-traumatic growth, a term that can be defined as the positive psychological changes experienced as a result of the struggle with traumatic or highly challenging life circumstances. And in the case of Beta, from what her story, it's clear to see that she's come through really well with post-traumatic growth, and she's able to recover and move on and to coach other people. And post-traumatic growth is not simply a return to baseline. It is an experience of tremendous improvement and growth, one that is deeply profound. This phenomena of personal growth resulting from a struggle with major life crises is universal and reported around the world. And there's strong evidence that people and communities can dramatically shift in positive ways post-trauma. People who experience post-traumatic growth often see positive changes in the following dimensions. And this could be personal strength, relating to others, new possibilities, appreciation of life, and spiritual and existential changes. Experiences of growth after trauma can lead to more meaningful relationships, a better sense of self, and a changed philosophy of life. Now let's talk about Black women and post-traumatic growth. Black women have an increased risk of experiencing different forms of trauma in their lifetime. And unfortunately, it's hardly spoken about, but a high number of Black women experience childhood sexual abuse, violence, dating violence, intimate partner violence, sexual assault, and physical harassment. Research has shown that Black women are extremely resilient when faced with trauma, and it is suggested family and cultural issues play a part in developing that resiliency. However, being resilient does not mean that Black women are immune to emotional, psychological, and physical consequences of experiencing trauma. Not all Black women who experience trauma develop psychological issues, but some women may be resilient in reducing their emotional and psychological distress over time. And there are others who may thrive after trauma experiences. But the main bias today is the strong Black woman stereotype that defines Black women as being strong in the face of adversity without being physically or emotionally distressed. For some, the strong Black woman status is seen as a source of pride for Black women, but this stereotype can hold them accountable for experiencing any stress or pain, and they're expected to suppress these emotions. The impact of the strong Black woman prevents Black women from fully analyzing their emotions, and showing vulnerability is unacceptable. The stereotype of being a strong Black woman prevents Black women from seeking necessary emotional, psychological, or physical help for fear of being perceived as weak. Therefore, it is hard to determine the mental issues and needs of Black women who stick to the strong Black woman stereotype. With that being said, it is important that professionals pay attention to the cultural and gender differences of Black women and examine their own biases when it comes to supporting Black women. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Hello. Can everybody hear me?
Oh, sorry. Oh my God, the pros and cons of using the internet. I was mute. Sorry about that.
Okay.
I was saying thank you, Nicole Etienne, for helping us understand the kind of bias people facing transformation after trauma go through. We are learning every day, and being Black doesn't mean you are strong. You can be strong on the outside, but totally broken in the inside. So we keep going, and we must be able to stand in our own authority and authenticity and say how we feel and ask for help. Most especially, as you said, the Black woman really doesn't ask for help. To introduce our next speaker, it's kind of emotional. I am very delighted because this is somebody I have known right from being very, very young as a child. And that's no other person than our beloved Are Echi. Arechi, I know your story to an extent because you have owned the power of your voice. And today we know you want to challenge unconscious bias in health and community. We are all ears to listen to part of your story and learn how we can treat people with health challenges in our community. I give the floor to Arechi.
Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you all. And before I start, I want to thank Clarence for the opportunity to join for us this International Women's Day to break the bias. Today, I would like to focus on how we are breaking the bias, and especially unconscious biases, towards people living with sickle cell and other forms of disabilities. I'll be talking from my own experience as someone who lives both with sickle cell and suffers from hearing impairments. I have to, from time to time, meet people whose mentality and overall perception about sickle cell is so, I don't know how to put it, but from that perception, you understand so much about these unconscious biases that come across. For example, it is a general held belief that someone born with sickle cell cannot live above the age of 21. And because of this belief, a lot of parents refuse to send their children with sickle cell to school because they believe that it is actually a waste of time to send these children to school. After all, they don't have any future after 21. Also, because that is what the society believes. And this belief is further perpetuated by the fact that people just move around on assumptions. They are not ready to learn. For example, there was a time I told somebody I'm sick, and the person was like, why are you often so sick? I said, because I have sickle cell disease. And the person was like, oh, have you already reached 21? I mean, they have to be there, and I was like, why was this person asking me if I have already reached 21? Because the person believes what is out there, that my lifespan is 21. And sadly, that is the view that the majority of people hold. Every day I come across parents who tell me they have no hope for their child because they just know that at the age of 21, that child is going to die. And then you come across people who believe that because the pain that we experience living with sickle cell is not visible, that pain is only in our mind, and they don't take us seriously. And because of that, a lot of people with sickle cell, They don't get adequate medical attention, and when they die suddenly, they attribute that to sickle cell, which is not always the case. Coming to hearing impairment, where I come from, many people believe that if you are deaf, hard of hearing, or just having any form of disability, you are just a waste of time. There's nothing they can do with your life. Now imagine this situation if my family believes all this. I couldn't be here today talking with you people because they could have taken that as this child not having any future. They could not have sent me to school. They could have just packed me somewhere and probably let me die. Because at the end of the day, there was nothing they could do about my life. And how did I go about now trying to break these biases? For the past 5 years or so, I've been using my personal story to raise awareness on the realities and challenges of living with sickle cell. For Emilian, Clarice, Sandra, and any other person, Belle, any other person who knows me, they have been supporting this advocacy because they believe in the realness of what I'm doing. They need to break these biases, to change the narrative, to help people see that sickle cell is not just a death sentence, but that in spite of the pain, you can find purpose. It is always so possible to help your child with sickle cell turn the pain into something purposeful in life. And this happens when we are willing to learn, to unlearn, and to relearn. We start seeing people with sickle cell and other forms of disabilities as valuable members of the society. People who need just that gentle push to help them see life beyond their health limitations and find themselves as valuable members of the society. And that is what I've been trying to do. Well, many people believe I cannot live above 21. Today, I'm still standing, waxing strong, living a purposeful life.
Amen.
And presently in my mid-40s.
Great.
I could say that is one very strong bias I have broken, and which today serves as an inspiration for many parents with sickle cell to invest in their children, to give their children opportunities, and to help their children to just live their lives.
Yeah.
It starts with knowledge, and it starts with advocating for helping people to see that if you take away the blindfold, you see so much beautiful potentials out there. So sickle cell is real. The pain is real. The challenges we face daily is real. But the fact is, it is not witchcraft. It is not a death sentence. Persons with sickle cell have the same opportunity and potential as any other normal person to be valuable members of our societies. So if next time you see somebody with sickle cell, or you see somebody who is hearing impaired, disabled, don't just write them off. Look above those challenges. Focus on that one simple thing you believe they have as individuals. I mean, see the individual first before the challenges. And when you do that, you are helping to break the bias. You are helping to change the narrative. And you are helping these people to grow above their challenges, to be impactful and valuable members of the community. And well, thank you all for listening. So the more we speak, the more we break the biases and the more we change the challenges. So I'll be happy to be here with you today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I don't think words are refined enough to express how grateful, how honored, how blessed and privileged I am to actually hear you share your story and the experience and how you've broken so many barriers already in your life. I know that if you are ready and willing to learn, we can all on a daily basis, if we are ready and willing to listen, we can learn on a daily basis. And I think that actually captures everything that you are trying to create, to let people become aware of what is going on. And I'm so pleased. Now, sometimes you have to blaze your own trail so that you become a trailblazer, like they say. And you are surely and absolutely one of those that I can comfortably say that you are a trailblazer. You are an advocate. You are really pushing forward to breaking this barrier. And it's not something you read from a textbook. It's something that you are actually living on a daily. And if you can do it, somebody listening or watching today can also do it. So continue being that light of hope. Continue being that person that would inspire and educate. And I believe Are Echi has a book, if you would, about her journey. If you would want to also get a copy of that book, you can link up with Esimbeng. She's going to link you up to get a copy of that book. And I believe it's going to be an amazing one that is going to bless you so much. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's really been a blessing. I think it's hard for me not to have words to really describe certain things in my life, but this one has actually kept me on the floor thinking, what else do I have to complain about? What else do I have to say? If you can rise up, this is hope for some other person. And we are surely going to break these biases that we have in society and in our community. That is why we have a platform like the Voice of Hope Media, where we educate, we empower, we inspire by giving it a voice. The songwriter says, "This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine." And if we all imagine gathered today, if we bring our little lights together, can we all imagine what a great beam of light this will produce? And this is just the beginning. More to come. Now, as I move on to our next guest today, Priya Brown. Now, looking at a sphere of life that people clearly go into and delve into like a pinch of salt, because it comes with its own sharks, its crocodiles, its own wars and attacks, and that is politics. It's a field that I enjoy, I like so much. So now, what are some of the biases that women actually, or any person with any form of disability, will encounter in the world of politics, would you say?
Oh gosh, that's a big question, and this is the thing. Thank you, first of all. I have to say thank you for being here. So, Clarice, thank you for organising this and to be here amongst such an amazing and varied spread of people to come together to celebrate women and to challenge the biases we face. I really appreciate it. It's an honor to be here. And yes, Festus, it's a big question that you're asking, because gender representation is a huge issue. And we need to have equal participation, equal leadership in politics and in public life. It's essential. It's essential to have that representation, because we're not achieving gender parity in any of the sectors we work in any of the areas that we live in terms of decision making. And there are many biases that people will face. When you are born a female, or you identify as female or a woman, the challenges are so deeply rooted in society that women cannot be seen to be taking the charge and leading the way. It's wrong that we're standing into these big boots that really should be filled by men. But it's not about the power and the glory. It's about having that equal representation so that decisions are made with everyone in mind. And that's really one of the things. I never studied politics myself. And I actually came interested into politics because I met another lady who had a very similar story, in the sense of feeling marginalized and that the system was failing us in that sense. And this woman represented the Women's Equality Party. And the Women's Equality Party stands for, ultimately, standing up for issues that are rooted in feminism. So we have a feminist-led approach to everything, but the whole point of feminism is that we are very inclusive and that we are about equality benefiting everybody, which is really important. So as a result, I wanted to learn more, and I took that first step of just approaching her to find out more. And the more and more we talked about things, the more and more I knew I was marginalized. And I felt that way, but I didn't know who would listen to talk to me about this, you know? And I think that's one of the big challenges we all face as a woman. People won't take you seriously. Myself being.
You have attacks, that means you are trying to achieve and change something. And we know change.
Their male counterparts. Now, there are debates around that. We're not sure how much of an effect that is happening. Two of the three countries in the world whose parliaments have more than 50% of female members, which is Cuba and Rwanda, don't actually score very well on political freedom. So it's really important that we look not just at the numbers, but we look beyond that and we think about how are women's interests being spoken out in favor of. And we can only do that with our allies, such as the men in this room today and the men that are around us in our lives. And we always start small. We can start small, we grow, we get bigger. The bigger the impact is made then. I stand for equality in politics because I want to see a fairer society, an equitable society. I've got two little boys myself, and I don't want them to feel financial burdens because the pressure on them is to provide and be the breadwinner in the house. I don't want them to feel that they have to be a bystander in life. If they see something, I want them to be able to call out misogyny, racism, ableism, any kind of ism. So that's really important to me, and I do that because I don't think that people should feel at any point disadvantaged because of who they are in life to have an opportunity. So that's my little thing on politics. I don't know if maybe we can join the two videos and cut out the middle bit, but I don't want to take up too much time, otherwise I'm conscious we'll go over. I hope that was okay, and thank you very much again for having me on this on the show, because I think this is such an important thing and I want us to be able to carry it on from not just today, not just for International Women's Day, and not just for Women's History Month, but beyond. Every day of the year, we must challenge those biases, really call out those stereotypes. Don't be a bystander. In all aspects, politics or not, there is room for everyone at the table in this world, and that's how it should absolutely 100% be. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I totally believe that there is room for everyone, and I stand in support that we should get a lot of women in the corridor of power. So today, I think we take the opportunity to celebrate governments that fight for equality in their decision-making sector. We can't overlook that. For those countries with female board members in their government, we salute you, and it's something we are proud to see happening in all the countries out there. And looking at the theme for this year's International Women's Day, that is gender equality today for a sustainable tomorrow, it sits with our objectives as a community, because we are intentional about creating change that will be felt for the generation to come. Having one of us today come to talk about science, maths, in the name of STEM is an added advantage. And at this point, we'll welcome Dr. I like to get people's names straight. Dr. Mafo Foma Ngofo, who will be talking to us about breaking the barriers in STEM, in life science for a girl child. Doctor, I know you have a lot to talk, and we want to understand the gap between the male and the female in this aspect. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. I'm really passionate to be here today. I have given this talk before to a lot of men around the world and in the UK. So I'm really glad that we're celebrating the female child, and also we're celebrating everybody, both men and women. And what I'm talking about is about STEM. STEM is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. I am a medical doctor by profession. I am a toxicologist. That's my specialty, a drug toxicologist. And I do a lot of clinical work and also work in the pharma industry. And I do a lot of presentations about life sciences to the pharmaceutical industry. So today I'm just going to give a little talk just about what's going on in Africa per se. You know, I'm not going to talk about the whole world, but you know, that is a part of the world that STEM, the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics is really lacking. I'll start by saying that, first of all, around the world, there are very few women in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. But in sub-Saharan Africa, only about 28% of women are in this STEM. And it's really sad because from the day you're born as a woman in sub-Saharan Africa, it becomes a problem for you then, because the male child is preferred to the female child in most parts of sub-Saharan Africa. And also when you're born, it's like, oh, they want you to do the things that look like women. Like, oh yeah, you should be on TV, you should be a journalist, you should be a teacher and other things. But then people don't think about the fact that women can be pilots, they can be engineers, they can be doctors, and other scientific roles like IT engineers and other things. So it already puts you at one corner. And then we talk about the fact that when you go to schools, even when you talk about the mathematics classes, things like physics, math, many girls shy away from it because, first of all, they don't have a lot of teachers who are female who are teaching those subjects. And the next thing is you don't have a lot of mentors out there trying to help these girls to tell them that they could do this thing and their brains are the same like that of a man. So by the time you get to high school, a lot of these girls have quit mathematics, they've quit physics, they've quit chemistry, and they think that no, they have to do the other kinds of subjects, but their brains are they have the full potentials of doing those subjects, but then it's just the lack of mentorship and the lack of us giving a lot of money and interest into developing that girl child. And then some of the things too that make it really difficult for a lot of girls to get into science and technology is the sociocultural way in which people do things in Africa. First of all, religion plays a big part. If you go to certain parts of Africa, you see that there are very few girls in school, and they're not going to school because they have to go into early marriages. Their parents will favor the boy child over the girl child, and it makes it really difficult. And even those who manage to get to high school, by the time they go to university, that's the marriage age. They have to marry and start having babies. So it really retards them, and it keeps them from getting to their full potentials. Another thing that's happening in most parts of sub-Saharan Africa is the lack of investment. The governments, most of them are not investing in the girl child. They are not investing in STEM. If you go to most high schools in Africa, you discover that the labs are not properly equipped. The government is not giving them enough money to encourage girls to get into the science and technology. And even sometimes when you want to go into science and technology and mathematics and all the rest, most universities in Africa don't have a lot of, they cannot actually train those people because they don't have what it takes. So, and if you're a boy and a girl, they would favor the boy over you. So it makes that from the day you're born, it's quite challenging to get to anything. Another thing that is also a bias that I find is the fact that even within the families, your mother will tell you that if you get too educated, no man will get married to you. I have been told this so many times. And I remember when I was about writing my O-levels at the time, people used to write 10 papers. And I came to my dad and I said, oh, I'm going to write 11 papers. And my dad was like, oh, no, there's no 11 papers. And you're a girl anyways. Are you really sure you want to do it? And I had the 11 papers. The first time the 11 papers came and I had it. So sometimes the biases are coming even within the home. And I remember one of my aunties telling me, oh, this school you're going to, it's too much. No man will marry you. Don't get yourself too educated. You would scare everybody. And I told that relative of mine, I'm like, you know what? Any man will come to me at the right time and he will be very proud to have me as a wife. So we have to try and break those barriers and break all those stereotypes that are even coming within our families and within our communities. And one thing that is happening is that there's a lot of work being done by the WHO, UNESCO, and the African Development Bank, World Bank, and the African Union to boost the science and technology in Africa. And it's really wonderful because South Africa is making a lot of progress in that. And also you have the African Union has told all the countries to pledge 1% of their GDP to support women in sciences. So there are pilot programs going on currently in Rwanda and in Cameroon and other sub-Saharan countries, trying to get more girls into technology, into engineering, into mathematics and sciences. And I think we're seeing a lot of progress. But then we're having a problem because most of the time, the girls who manage to get to the top, they end up not coming back to their countries because there's a lot of immigration. And when they go out there, because they too are seen as resource to those countries they've migrated to, they find it hard coming back. And even sometimes when they come back, they don't have the equipment to work with. They don't have what it takes, the manpower to, they don't have all the things they need to work with. So it becomes very, very, very challenging for them. But then I would say that a lot of governments are making a lot of effort to push women forward in the sciences. We need to, those of us here who are thinking of going into politics in Africa or who are part of politics, we need to advocate so that more money can be put into the system to help young girls to get to their full potentials. Because what happens is that if you have women who are properly educated and they can earn their own money, they will become empowered. They can read and write. They can make decisions for themselves. They can run countries. They can run homes. And I think it's going to do a lot of good to our communities, because a lot of our parents have actually sacrificed for a lot of Africans, especially the African girl, to get to where they are today. So we need us now at this point, we need to make sure we advocate so that more girls can do greater things and get to the point where they can take decisions and make things happen. But one thing I want everyone to take back home today is that in the WHO and also the World Bank, they wrote a paper and it said that in order for Africa to make progress, we need a lot of people in the STEM, in the science, technology, engineering, and math, because that is where the future is. So if we could get more girls into the STEM and even more boys too, then we will have this projectile exponential growth in Africa, because we need those people. Because at the moment, a lot of the work that should be done by people of STEM in Africa is being outsourced to China, other Southeast Asian countries, and also to Europe. So I will conclude by saying that I'm really proud to be a woman in science, and I hope and pray that more girls, more young girls will look at me and other women who are in science and technology and be inspired to do great things and to contribute towards their society, and so that their voices can be heard. And I just hope that someday when I come to this platform, I will see more women like myself. They're doing great things. Thank you so much.
Wow. Thank you so much, Dr. Mafo from GUFO. Thank you so much for enlightening us, from giving us, I would consider this like a TED Talk. And it's really been in-depth, it's been enriching, it's been educative, at the same time challenging, creating an awareness and such a platform for others to emulate, and sharing your own story and how some of the words were spoken to you. We know words have power, and if you had let them bother you, you wouldn't have been where you are today. So we are grateful that you had to fight some of these biases even at an early age, moving forward. And I would just like to use this opportunity to say, if any man will not come to you because of your level of education, then we've got a problem. And the problem is not with you, the woman. I think the problem is with the man who cannot level up. So there's no need for you to dumb it down so that you can blend in with some men out there. I would say raise your bar, raise your standard, and let the man rise to the occasion. If they can, let them do it. There's no need for you to dumb it down just because you have to blend in. Nope. I'm a sucker. I'm a big fan of you raising your game, raising your standard, and let's catch up. If we can, that's fine. If you're an eagle, fly and let's soar in the sky. And now, having talked about this, we're going to move to an interesting topic. And Bele, Sanke, we've been on different platforms, shared some interesting topics. It's been really challenging and I love it so much. I would like to start this by just putting this out there and saying that a house that is divided against itself cannot stand. You are about to talk about some of the biases of women promoting ills against other women and girls. Now, we cannot be fighting against ourselves and then expecting the male gender or society to have equity when we are fighting against ourselves. Now, Bella, what is your take on this? It's an interesting topic, and I love, and I'll pay close attention to what you have to say.
Wow. Thank you, Festus, for the introduction. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, 5 on 5.
Okay, thank you. You can see I'm a Shekina. Today, I'm tuning in from Dubai. So when AC invited me, okay, we have to talk. We can't only accuse the other. We have to take cognizance of our own barriers, what we do not to promote women. And this is what I'm talking about today. The women, we talk about over 50% of women in the world. But as the UN Women says, 1 out of 5 women live in abject poverty. And excuse me, who's responsible for it? When we're talking about 51% of women in the whole universe. So not wanting to be long, I just want to talk about, I'll take for example, two case scenarios. I'll start by, we talk about a human right abuse, which is female genital mutilation. Who practices this on women? Mm-hmm. I've never heard. I've lived in West Africa for the past, let me say from 2010 to 2022. I've been in West Africa for the past 12 years. This is part of the world where FGM is commonly practiced. And it is practiced by women, on young girls. It's not men. So for me, it's like, what is the rationale behind this practice? Has it got some therapeutic benefits on a woman? I think no, it has nothing. It is something, you know, we'll talk about the young child, because this thing is practiced between the age of 6 and above. Imagine you taking a young girl to the Bundu society, as they call it in Sierra Leone. You meet women. Her aunts are there, her moms, her sisters, her grandmoms are those practicing this. This is something we're fighting against, FGM, but who practices it? If it's part of, we talk of inequality, no man is around to see how it happens. It's you and me, women, the auntie, the sister, the aunt, the grandmother practicing this. This is an abuse to the young woman. Do we know that? Do we even think about it? You know, I listened to Ari talk about advocacy. I can, I can proudly say Sierra Leone has championed the fight against FGM, because today it's a crime in Sierra Leone, and you have associations around who are explaining to these people who practice it to know that it has no therapeutic benefit, because most often at times, we can say 50% of these girls who go through FGM die from overbleeding, because it's not done in medical conditions. It's not done in a medical facility. And the effects of this, it's it's something that they have to live with all their life. I'll tell you a small story. In 2010, one of my colleagues, she was so excited because she had gone through this. She was so excited that when she goes back home, her daughter, who was then 8 years, will have to, and I looked at her and like, excuse me, you're an educated woman and you want. We had an intimate conversation and I knew the pain she was going through, having undergone FGM. And I told her, is this the same thing you want your daughter to go through? She's like, oh, she's asking for it. I said, because she doesn't know the truth. You need to have that conversation with her and tell her there is no benefit, no therapeutic benefit. The only thing is maybe the social inclusion. You want her to belong to the typical, like they say, to the typical African, a woman must be excised to be in this society. No, we don't need to seek validation to be women. We don't need to be mutilated to be women. And for me, it's like, hey, women, we can do better. We know the ills of FGM. Childbearing is not easy for people who have undergone such practices. So I'll stop on that and then take the next one. As women, who do we employ in our houses? We employ children. Most nannies in sub-Saharan Africa are not 18 years. They're below 18 years. Okay, let's understand that you took them because you want to educate them. But what do? They become slaves in your house. You breach the contract, the initial contract, most often at times, because we think that the young girl can take care of her house, yes. But you have the possibility of educating her. She can go to evening schools. She can go to evening school. I'm saying it. I have a friend whose nanny today is a PhD holder. Her family sent her to go work money for her. She was barely 14 years. When she came into my friend's house, we had this conversation. My friend said, okay, that's true.
This girl did 3 years in secondary school and passed her O-levels, 8 papers, went to high school, passed 4 subjects, and today, as we speak, she's defending her thesis from the University of SWA. You know, but most of, how many of them, how many of us women can do that? So when we talk about inequalities, you know, like in the 21st century, I asked myself a question. In the 21st century, we should be talking about equity, not about equality anymore. We should be talking about equity. I think I'm communicating. We shouldn't be talking, because we instead turning in the 21st century, we're worse than what used to happen in 2 centuries back. I am half a decade today. I'm already in the golden age. So when I imagine that young girls below 30 today talk about, oh, school, excuse me, what has happened with school? The issue is like, we parents, mothers in particular, we are accomplices to the detriment of our daughters. We are accomplices because we, as I say, if you as a mother, you stand up and say, you must do this. You stand up and, you know, you tell your child, you have to go to school. You deserve it and you can do better. As they say, anything a man can do, a woman can do even better. You know, we have that potential. We have that potential to be better than men, because just see already what we do as women. We are the ones taking care of the house. You come back from work, you are there. Why our men are there watching soccer and things like that? Yeah, we can upload some of these men out there today who understand that we need their support. But excuse me, women, we need to stand up. You have, Priya just talked about politics. In every country, we should have been having a female president if 51% of, if 51% of the population is made of women. So women should learn to stand with women so we can do things better, because women have a different way of seeing things. When women take things at hand, they multiply them. The man has a different way of looking at life. But I urge every woman today to stand up and say, I will take care of that nanny of mine who is from an underprivileged family. I will educate her to at least have advanced level, so the woman, you know, like as we said, they will make a difference. I'll tell you another simple story. Have you ever realized that when it comes to inheritance in Africa, when they give the inheritance to boys, they always squander it. But the woman tries to protect the legacy of the family, not like a boy child. The woman is big, and only you, a woman, can make that woman be what you want. If you want to make her a housewife and miserable, she will become miserable because it is you. If you want to make her become a strong woman, that woman who is financially autonomous, then that woman, it is you as the mother. So we have to change. I am breaking this bias to stand up against and fight against any woman who thinks that they have to look at another woman as an underdog. Let me say as an underdog. It's not because her parents don't have money to educate her that you as a woman cannot educate her. Why are we mentors if we have to shun at other women? We have to be part of the transformation. It's not, I don't have to transform only my family. I should be able to transform any woman who is around me. I should be able to transform any woman. I made a post. I need 10 women to mentor them. I had just 2, because women nowadays think that being married is a profession. No, it is not a profession. Being married is not a profession. Being married is being able to have a companion, be able to take decisions that shape your life and that of your family. And it is only possible if you stand up as a woman. Are you a woman? I break that bias. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now I understand why I like to call you Queen Mother. I don't even know where to start, but honestly, I think it's important to propel another sister to win. rather than bringing them down. Yeah. And you spoke about the FGM. That is something that is so dear to me, because I have personally done projects on that, and I understand how much it is a barrier, a very, very huge barrier, together with child marriage. It has been a huge barrier in the past, and it's still a huge barrier in the world of today, to the realization of the rights of girls and women. We don't need to take it for granted. That is why I think personally, we need to prioritize efforts to end them, please. We need to break that barriers. We need to empower the girls. We need to empower women who are going through that situation to be able to reach their potentials. FGM, it's so cruel. And the truth is, that is just a door gate to teenage pregnancies. It is. And also to early marriages, because usually they do it and they think that you are ready and right for marriage. So I stand with you, Queen Mother, and the rest of the phenomenal women on this platform, and the co-gentleman in the name of Festus Moore, who has joined us to break all these biases. Let's talk about important issues. We are trying to be sustainable for tomorrow. So we'll dive into the money-making lady, Judith Moore. I hope I got her name right. Judith, we are here today because we know you want to break that bias. And we really join you to celebrate leaders and women who are redefining the future of business for us. So today, we are here, ears open, to get your actionable advice on how to go on. Judith Moore. You on mute.
Sorry about that. Hi, everyone. Thank you all ladies for all the powerful talk. I'm happy to be here. Yes, today I'll be talking about women and money, financial advice and asset ownership. So the media, as we all know, portrays women as big spenders. So if you go onto Yahoo Finance, for example, they refer to women as the big spender when it comes to personal finance. The TV programs that we all watch, they portray women as the spenders of money, while the men are portrayed as those who make the money. You have programs like the Housewives of this, Great Housewives of that, and they all show these women as women who come together to talk about how they spend their husband's money. We have Confessions of a Shopaholic, for example. They all talk about how women spend money recklessly. There was this research by Sterling Bank, and when they analyzed the language that was used by finance article writers, it showed that 65% of the articles that were directed at women described women as excessive spenders with poor judgment who needed control of their spending to be able to save. While this is a characteristic of people in general, but unfortunately the media portrays this as a female thing. Also looking at the media in general, articles that are written that are directed to a female audience, the subjects of things like budgeting, financial planning, they are always presented as being overwhelming, stressful. Meanwhile, if that same article was addressed to a male audience, they talk about building portfolios, taking calculated risk, exploring opportunities. So when a family is in crisis, in financial crisis in general, the woman is blamed for it because she's labeled as being poor, as a poor home manager. The woman is always labeled as being poor as managing the home budget. I remember when I was growing up, people hated and blamed my mom for the fact that my dad didn't give them money when they asked for it. Sadly, this is the reality of most of our women today and in most of our homes where financial challenges are experienced. Most of the time we realize that when the man doesn't consult with their wives on the spending and when the woman has no idea of how the home budget is run, that family most of the time experiences financial difficulties because women, they are the ones who understand what happens in the home. Research has also shown that very few women are hired as financial advisors, like the men. So when we talk about financial advice out there or anything to do with finance, the man is always portrayed. The man always comes up. One of my mentors went out.
Right, I'm not sure.
Financial advice.
Okay.
And the financial advice, can you hear me?
Yeah, we lost you there for a few seconds.
Okay, sorry, I was saying that one of my mentors, she went out for financial advice, and the financial advisor she met asked her where she took the money from. Do you have a rich boyfriend, or do you have a rich husband who gave you all of this money that you want to invest? And you see, these are all the type of things that women face because we are considered to be spenders. We don't look at women as that person who can manage a portfolio. We don't look at that woman who can own an asset class. We don't look at those women as women, as those people who can sit down and run a good budget. Today, I challenge this bias as women now earn higher than men. There are a lot of women out there who have become primary breadwinners in their households. They are earning more than men, and they are playing an active role in the household financial decision making. One other bias that women face when they go for investment advice is the fact that if they are together, if they are with a man or they are with a partner who is a male, you realize that they don't even look at their faces. Whoever is giving them advice doesn't look at the woman. The focus is on the man. The questions are being referred to the man. The woman is sitting there and it's like she's inexistent. It's like everything that is being owned has to be directed to the man. She's sitting there as she is a companion per se. She has no say. She has nothing to say. And then research also shows that when we talk about assets, women are not expected to be at the forefront. Women should not talk about owning assets, especially in the African way of thinking. A woman doesn't have to talk about assets. A woman should not talk about inheritance. It's like a taboo for a woman to talk about owning an asset. If a woman has an asset in her name, it is a big issue. Oh, how could she do that? On the other hand, it's normal that a man should have assets in his name. And it's so terrible because we realize that if a woman had a husband who was not financially savvy or who didn't put the finances of the house at the forefront, when this man died, these women suffered. These women suffered with their children because they were never part of the household. And so many women, unfortunately, are suffering the effect of this because they were not part of everything that was happening. When a man dies, sometimes the family will come on and they'll take everything away from the family because this woman was never part of everything. Oh, this property belongs to my brother. Oh, this property belongs to my son. You have nothing to say about it and all of that stuff. So today I challenge the fact that we as women, we are powerful, we are strong, we are better managers of money, we are better investors. And if we have to manage the budget, we are better at all of that. So I challenge that fact and I call on all women that we need to stand up and erase this mentality that we are spenders rather than savers. Thank you.
Well, erasing the mentality that women are not spenders, but rather savers. I think that was a good line to close that discourse on. And then I think it's a bias, it's true. Documentaries and shows and programs, movies, whatsoever we have, it portrays women as the spenders and all of this stuff, go shopping, bags, brand and all of this stuff. So that's a bias that actually should be broken because that is not always the case, as maybe women are also good managers and savers as well. Now, moving on, now from being financially savvy and savers, we want to now move on to Danielle to find out how deep are the roots of these biases within the workplace? Is it something that is easily visible? Is it something that is just subconscious, or is it something that it's so apparent within the workplace? Danielle? do. Daniel, can you please unmute?
Yeah. Thank you. The host mute me and they say only the host can unmute me. And
right,
also she blocked my videos. So I cannot be on video. Okay, that's fine. I don't know if it's still possible. No. They say you can't start your video because the host has stopped it.
All right, then the host will be able to do that very shortly. So if you can fire
so
away.
That's fine, that's fine. So yeah, I'll be talking about unconscious bias in the workplace and how to avoid them. In a world where we are bound with information overloaded, biases form an essential part of our thinking. It is important to understand and admit that we all have bias and sometimes make mistakes based on snap judgment to perhaps help in making quicker decisions. So sometimes we don't think of it, but it's still that's why they call it unconscious bias. It can affect how we understand and treat people. This year, International Women's Day encourages us to continue the conversation and break the bias. The good news is there are ways to avoid unconscious bias in the workplace and recognize how to correct them. So I'll be talking about 8 different types of unconscious bias and what we can do to keep it out of our workplace. And so to start with, I'll be talking about what is unconscious bias. Unconscious bias refers to a person's attitude or belief about others that happen without the person being aware of it. These biases are based on common facts or your past experience that may affect how you think of things now. They happen without you realizing it, hence the name unconscious bias. It's very important to recognize it. It is very, very important because they can create unfair disadvantages and unconscious bias can have negative effect on a team. Certain workers will receive this unfair judgment, unfair treatment, despite not having any of their work performances taken into consideration. So this hurts the team morale and push employees away from the business. So you see in the workplace, there'll be a lot of resignation, and I know what I'm talking about. Yeah, so it do happens, when do unconscious bias happens? Most of the time, it happens at any time. It can happen at any time, at any place. And it can influence a person at any point without the person realizing it. So the 8 examples I'm going to give today will be, the first one will be age. Age discrimination is based on the belief that other employees are not as competent at or capable of performing a job as the youngest employees. This idea could be a result of a person believe that a person's age is related to their work ability, knowledge, or skill. These bias tend to favor young, driving employees. So to avoid this one, managers can combat ageism by including youngest and oldest workers together in a group to have them interact and form positive relationship. And this will allow the value of their experience. They will share their experience with the youngest one and the job can be done very smoothly. I'll be also talking about weight. That's us. Weight bias.
That's an interesting one. Daniel, do you mind trying to see if you can turn on your camera?
My video.
Yes.
Yeah, it's back. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So you can see me now. Thank you.
Great. Okay.
So yeah, I'll be talking about weight. So we all know that this day, because of COVID, we all stayed at home. Can you guys see me?
Yes.
We are all at home and then we all put on weight, just small ones. So weight bias is a judgment of another person because they are heavier or lighter than average weight. And people have their way of thinking that, oh, everybody should be like a model, like a Kim Kardashian, or be like those skinny Beyonce type. But you cannot judge somebody because of the way they look. So this bias affects people of all backgrounds, both male and female workers, regardless of the person's workability. So to avoid this one, the manager or the company director can only look at the person's workability and fit to the team instead of just judging their appearances. I'll also be talking about affinity bias. This is the one that, the reason why I chose this unconscious bias today is because I've been through a lot, something similar, where I even have to go to court with my employees because the affinity bias is based on the idea that a person are naturally drawn to like other people. So this woman, she has somebody that she worked with before years ago, and then they stopped working because the guy, she sold the company, and this guy went to work somewhere else, and then he started having problem where he was working. So she called him back, but before he came back, I was already, I started this new business that she put into place, and then I started working for her all alone, single-handed in a care agency, no care coordinator, no care fee supervisor. I was doing almost everything. I was doing everything, I shouldn't say almost. And all of a sudden, after a year of working hard to make sure the company is grown with a lot of clients, she decided to bring the guy in because she knew him before and they worked together. So she thinks that he can do the job better. And he's a guy and I'm a woman. So she brought him in. So these kind of things happen quite a lot in the workplace because of affinities, discrimination, and so the affinity bias can be avoided by ensuring that the workplace is diverse environment. This means that during the hiring process, companies should aim to hire a diverse staff to promote diversity. Because I was Black, the company owner was a white lady, and the guy that she hired was a white guy. So I wasn't very happy because I've been doing all the job on my own. And now if you want to bring somebody, the person shouldn't be on top of me. Or you advertise the job and we all go through the hiring process. So these are things that we sometimes maybe we don't think. She will be thinking, oh, let me help somebody that worked with me before he approached me because he's looking for a job, but forgetting that I was already there. So this kind of thing, people really need to take into consideration because you hurt the person's feelings and then you hurt not just their own, but because as a woman, as a mother, as a wife, this also has an impact on my family. Because if you're not happy, your home will not be happy. So things like that, we need to be very, very careful. And I'll be still talking about beauty bias. There are some jobs where they want ladies to be beautiful, or you cannot dress like this, you cannot be like that, you cannot be this height, you cannot be this. So they are judging people on based on how attractive they seem to be. This can have a negative effect on the company as it ignores the work capability of an employee for the attractiveness. So they will be looking at, oh, we want this person to look this way, and you don't want Black person, or you don't want a blonde girl here. We don't, kind of things. So how to avoid this one? Like weight bias can be avoided in the workplace by looking only at the person's work performances rather than the physical appearance. And again, in the hiring process, they need to be able to consider everybody based on the qualification and not the attractiveness. And this is gender, like I said, gender bias. That was the one that I faced in that company, because this guy was
for some reason, we've lost you, Danielle. Not sure if it's your internet or...
So no, maybe I'll go for one more. You think they're asking you a question that because they want to chat with you or know more about you, and then you confide in them, and then by the time you know it, they'll use it against you. So gender bias is quite a lot in a lot of companies that are using it, and it's when one particular sex is treated more favorably than the other sex. And like I said, they brought a man, and I would assume that's why they brought a man, because I could do the job from the beginning of the company till a year after. I was still doing the job on my own, single-handed. So if you're now bringing a guy in to take over, to be my manager, it doesn't really make sense, because he has never been a manager where I was the manager, and then he met me and he cannot be on top of me. So because I was a woman, that's how I perceive it. Because I was a woman, So they wanted somebody that has no, he didn't have children, he just got married, and I don't know. So sometimes in a workplace, even though we have the same, we have same capacity, women are typically treated less favorably, resulting in an imbalance in their workforce. So to avoid this one, gender bias can be avoided by establishing whether a gender swap will matter in the role. There was no need for a man to become a manager in that workplace, because as a woman, I could do that, and I could do even more than what he was coming to do. So I'll be talking about attribution bias. Attribution bias is an unconscious bias where a person tries to evaluate or try to understand why other people behave the way they do. This means that a person will try to make an attribution or assumption about certain people based on their action. And this can be toxic to the work culture in a company, since it allows employees to belittle other employees by downplaying their accomplishment and flattening their mistakes. So like I said, I was belittled by bringing me under this guy, as he was my manager and I was the deputy manager. This wasn't fair. So this can be avoided by maintaining a neutral approach on the ground of gender during review and for feedback.
Great.
Yeah, and there's also name bias. People would happen when a person from prejudice, people sometimes like us, some of us, the name they cannot pronounce it. I have name, I have height as well. Height is the same as weight. So people will judge you on the way you look, on the where you're from. Your name will determine the area of Africa you're from, or if you're Black or if you're white. So things like that, we need to be very, very, very careful in our workplace. I'll quickly, I think I passed my time. So I would say that it is important to remember that all people are different, and different minds offer a unique and fresh perspective in a productive work environment. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you so much to all the ladies and guys that have been present today. We really learned a lot from you guys, and I'm very happy to be here with you guys. Thank you.
Many thanks, Daniela, for touching on most of the unconscious biases that are happening in the workplaces. But we know there are also some good people out there. And today, as we break these biases, we are also honoring the leaders who are working towards a gender equal workplace that is suitable for everyone. We thank them and we appreciate them. And we say to keep going forward. We'll move straight away. We are looking at our time. We are very sorry that we have gone a little bit after our time, but we know every voice counts. So please, we thank you and appreciate your patience. We'll move straight away to SC Hadi. Hi, SC. We understand you're breaking the bias faced by disabled people, and should be told, we know that most people living with disabilities are largely misunderstood by a lot of people out there. How do you think we can have this tough conversation going on that might inspire both sides? And straight to you, have you ever experienced this?
I have experienced it, absolutely. So I think the way that we understand bias more than kind of break it is by understanding where it comes from. And, you know, this evening we've had loads of speakers, and some of the speakers who have been talking about disability have kind of alluded to this in their talk as well, that the very first time we hear about disability, a child is born into the world, a non-disabled child is born into the world, and their parents say to them, "Oh, congratulations, you have a beautiful baby." A disabled child is born into the world, and the person that gives birth, that hands the child to the parent says, "I'm really sorry, your child's disabled." So from the very first instance, the attitude and the thought of what that child's life is going to be like is less than what it would have been for a non-disabled child. And when I say non-disabled, I mean a child without any disabilities, because we understand that disability is more than what we can see. Disability is also hidden. Disability is acquired, so you don't have to be born with a disability to have a disability. So that's why I use the term non-disabled instead of able-bodied. And then we see disability represented all over the media, and it's always negatively represented. So we're now in 2022, I was about to say 21, but we're now in 2022. And although we're moving forward, we're making very slow inroads in the world of disability, inclusion and equality when it comes to the media. The media represent disabled people as people that should be pitied, that can't do for themselves, who are a bit useless. Films and Marvel, and I love comic books, so I hate saying this about Marvel. Marvel represents disabled people to be villains, or we represent disabled people to be idiots, or the comedy characters that we can take the mickey out of, or the one that can't understand what's going on. And then we also have the impacts of the medical model of disability. Now, the medical model of disability states that disability is bad and disability is wrong, and the non-disabled world is right. And therefore, it's our job as society to change disability. So disabled people should have operations to fix them. So in my instance, I have an impairment called cerebral palsy. And cerebral palsy is a neurological impairment that affects your limbs. And so I say I can do everything a little bit and nothing completely. And so the doctors, and they used to say to my mum all the time, oh, why don't you just give her an operation? You know, why don't you fix her arm and she'll be fine? And those have an impact on what other people think. And the medical model also tells us, again, that it's disabled people's responsibility. So if they haven't had that operation, if they haven't done everything they can to be like us, then what do we need to do about it? It's their fault that they can't get into buildings. It's their fault they're not trying hard enough. It's their fault that they're not getting the education and employment and opportunities that the rest of us have. But what people are forgetting, or what they don't realize, is the reasons that disabled people, the reasons that we can't have those opportunities, is because of the attitudes and those biases about us not being able to achieve. So why would a teacher ever teach a disabled child if they don't think they're ever going to achieve? Well, it's a waste of time. Why would a teacher spend time on that stupid kid who can't read like everybody else, when actually they've been undiagnosed as having dyslexia or dyspraxia, or perhaps a hearing or a sight impairment that means that they can't engage in the same way, because we're not spending time to actually see what's going on beyond. And then we have to think about the language as well that's associated with disability. The language is always negative. So, I mean, today we've been talking a lot about people with disabilities and persons with disabilities. I am very much for the thought that we need to be using the language disabled people and disabled person. And whilst it's personal choice, so I am not challenging anyone in this room to say that they should be differently identifying with themselves. I'm saying as a society, as a culture, as a world, we need to be recognizing that people are being disabled by an external environment, which means that the fact that there aren't lifts to get us up to the building, the room in the building that we want to, that there aren't stairs to help us get to the front door, that there aren't always interpreters, BSL interpreters to translate. There aren't always closed captions available. Nobody's thought about the hearing loop. Nobody's thought about the fact that somebody can't understand and we need to re-articulate what we're saying. And because people don't understand that, it means that they're not doing anything to support us. And if they're not doing anything to support us, then we can't achieve. And so while I talk about language, so I think that's why it's really important for us to identify as disabled people, because then we are, as a people, are recognizing that what is stopping us from achieving what those barriers are external to us. They're not about us with impairments. They are about the outside world. So they're not about me with cerebral palsy or they're not about me not being able to use my legs and my wheelchair is in a Dalek and can't climb stairs. They're about the outside world, forgetting that I need, or not caring that I need a different way of engaging and getting into that building. So that's where I would start with language. I'd encourage everybody to think about what the meaning behind language are. And if we as a society, as disabled people, start using that language in that way, then also we can encourage our businesses and our allies, because if our allies start using the term disabled people, then they will also always be recognizing, always be reminding themselves that actually there's more that they can do. There's more as a society everybody can do to break that bias and break those attitudes that disabled people face. We also dilute language a lot around disability. So we quite often say, oh, I'm so depressed. Oh my gosh, I've got such OCD. And we don't really mean it. And these things like depression and OCD, they are proper mental health illnesses that people have and have to live with every day. But what happens is when people use the language as flippant language, oh, I'm so depressed today because, you know, I didn't quite get the promotion I wanted, or I'm so depressed because the program I wanted to watch wasn't on, or I forgot to press record, or whatever it might be. You know, if you are actually depressed, that's different. When you're using it as flippant language, what it means is that when somebody does say, actually, I'm feeling quite depressed today, it's diluted and the person it's not taken as seriously as it should have been. And it's the same with something like OCD. Oh, I'm so OCD. No, you're not. You're just like a tidy house. That's very different than than struggling with OCD and having a compulsion where you can't stop doing things until you've done it a certain amount of times. Language is also pitying. Oh, bless. Oh, poor disabled person. Oh, you're so brave. Oh my gosh, you're so inspirational. Well, thank you. I'd love to be inspirational if actually what I've said has inspired you, or what I've done has inspired you to do something different. But if I'm just walking down the road, then don't call me inspirational. And at that point, I tried very hard not to swear. I'd like to note that, but I didn't swear. And also, you know, language causes people to think that we are burdens. Oh, yeah, we'll just have to move this out the way. Oh, if you stay and kind of support that wheelchair or that wheelchair user. So this has an impact on the attitudes and the biases that the world has about disabled people. We also, as disabled people, we have internalized bias. So because we've grown up in a world and really in our families that a lot of the time we're the only disabled person in our families. Our families are being influenced by the media and the educators and the people in perceived authority figures that say that disability is wrong, and they're passing it on to us as disabled people. So we are also feeling that burden upon ourselves. Oh, it's my fault that I'm in the way. Oh, I'm so sorry for breathing. I'm so sorry that you had to hold the door open. I'm so sorry I couldn't get that aid. But actually, it's not our fault that we're not achieving that. It's the world, as I've explained. I think it's really imperative to touch upon ableism. Ableism, like any other isms, is the thought process that another community or another group of people or identity is better and that this identity is lesser. So in the ableism view, the non-disabled world is better and the disabled world is not as good. So for example, we wouldn't worry about putting closed captions on because actually those disabled people probably won't have much to say anyway. We won't bother about putting ramps in buildings because actually who wants to hear and who wants to see that disabled person? And actually there's only one of them and they never come here, so we won't bother. But the reason why we haven't come is because it's not a ramp. So it's really important to think about ableism from the external world and also how we internalize that ableism as well. I know lots of disabled people who won't sit in a wheelchair because they feel it makes them more disabled, where actually a wheelchair for a lot of people is really empowering. I have a wheelchair and it helps me go faster, quicker, and I don't get tired. So people say to me all the time, I ask them for directions and they say, oh, it's so far. And I say, well, let me be a judge of how far it is. I've just asked you where it is. It's almost like that pretty woman bit, you know, where she says, oh, I didn't ask you how much it was. You know, it's the same kind of thing. I didn't ask you how far it was. I asked you where it was. But it's this idea that as disabled people, we're lesser and we can't do it for ourselves. So lastly, I think I want to end on the fact that I think breaking the bias comes from reflecting on what we think about a group of people. So I'm talking just now about disabled people. So we have to reflect on what we feel about ourselves, reflect on what we want to do about it. We don't all have to be advocates and activists. I'm not saying that at all. I call myself a professional disabled person because I work in the profession and I am disabled, but not just because we are disabled doesn't mean that we always have to battle for our cause, and nor should it. It should not mean that. And just because we're women, exactly the same thing. If we choose to do that, then brilliant, but we shouldn't have to do that. We have to be supporting each other no matter what our identity is, to feel empowered and to move forward. And we also have to recognize that the smallest steps make the biggest difference. So by talking at events like this, we're making a big difference, but by kind of just going into the workplace. And you asked me to begin with, have I suffered discrimination? Yes, by fighting against that discrimination and talking about it. And actually, if we feel confident to ourselves, challenging it at the time or getting other people to support us to challenge that discrimination, that's how we break those biases so they become more positive rather than negative. And we have to recognize that when we're looking at things like media representation of disability as kind of something that is less and is wrong and is to be pitied, we have to think that's just one opinion. That's just how they're reflecting. We have to notice for ourselves how that's being projected into our own thought process. And then we have to battle to change that.
Wow. Simply wow. Now, Essie, I don't know what to say. I mean, like at the start of the show, I did use a couple of words, and maybe some could think I was just throwing fancy words around and stuff. I said, today we're going to have a citadel of knowledge and a plethora of experience from almost all walks of life. And today, this is not like just some talk that somebody read in the book. This is something that people are actually living, and when they share it, I don't know how many TED Talks we could actually have today. And for me, listening to this is quite mind-blowing because I'm learning a lot, and I'm learning about how language could actually play a bigger role. I can tell how people use words that could dilute what people actually go through, because we think, oh, well, it's just a word to throw around, fancy words and with no meaning, but it has long-term effects. And this is so enriching, and it's so educative. I mean, to our viewers and listeners out there, again, this is the Voice of Hope Media, where we just, create a platform to educate, to empower, and to inspire by giving it a voice. Like Essie said, what you share, the little that you have, is like the songwriter, as I said before, this little light of mine that I have is what I will bring. I'm going to let it shine until we can have this beam of light that is so great that people will actually start feeling the heat and will join the force, so that we can create this avalanche of a force that will break the bias that we are actually dealing with. Thank you so much. And I think my job is to dream dreams, and AC Bank's job is to run with the dream. I just have a dream like Martin Luther. I think someday we could just hire a hall. We could just hire a hall where we could have like TED Talks like this go on. And I believe that hall will be so that a lot of people would sit in there to listen to this, because this is so educative and it is really enriching. Now, thank you so much, Essie. And I think, well, we can talk on this for as long as we can, but we are time conscious. So we are moving on to the next. Yes, Esimbeng, I like to dream dreams, and then you run with the dreams. So moving on to the next, we have is Dr. Kilo, and we are just interested in what you are about to share with us today, because being somebody who is a doctor, now, from what I know, when we struggle with any form of ailments, back ailments, anything, the first person we call is the doctor, because they will fix our issue. Now, people tend to forget when you are actually the one who is providing maybe solutions or answers in quote to others. And then they minimize when you have to deal with what you have as well. And they tend to play down it should be easier on you because you are a doctor, you are this and you are that. You know, it's easier sometimes, you know, to fight an enemy on the outside, but sometimes when it's inside, people tend to minimize, thinking that, hey, you can cope with it because you conquered Goliath, but don't know that you have, you are also human. So how does that actually work? How does that operate within your sphere? Do people really come to you and tell you, well, you should take it easy because you are a doctor to deal with some of this stuff, dealing with raising a child or children with autism?
Absolutely, absolutely. So before I even delve into that, I have absolutely learned so much, and I feel so honored to be part of this platform and deeply humbled. And it's been fantastic. Everything everybody has shared, it's wonderful. But to answer to your question, yes. So I know when AC put this together, she had reached out to me and said, hey, what bias would you want to, what topic would you want to address? And I was like, oh, I don't know yet. 3 days before, I sent her a text message and I said, oh yes, I had a topic, but I meant to send it to you the previous day. I just forgot with my busy schedule. And so I sent her a message. I said, this is my topic. And she said, okay, I'll change the flyer. And I came about my topic because I have heard this repeatedly. So I am a mother raising 3 children on the autism spectrum disorder. And so to everybody, I hear this every single time. Oh, this must be very easy for you because you're a doctor. I'm like, wow. I didn't know that doctors came with different types of, 1, red blood cells. 2, we came with different types of brains. I honestly didn't know that we came with different types of flesh and blood. Like, really? No, I'm human. I have the same fears and challenges just like any other mother. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter what my career is. Mm-hmm. To be honest with you, if I had to rely on my medical education, I would have failed woefully at not only identifying the early signs of autism in my first child and the subsequent ones, but I would have failed woefully at raising them to become the fantastic children with different abilities that they currently have. I would have failed woefully at that. And I'll give you an example as to why I would have failed woefully. I was in med school, and they usually pick a test for each, and this is random, and they'll pick a test that each person will have to take this shelf exam. They just pick one subject, and you answer questions, close to like 300 or 400 questions on this one topic. They don't tell you what chapter is coming from. So you had to read the entire book. Everybody was scared of physiology because that was the biggest textbook to read. And nobody wanted to be randomly selected to take that one. And so guess what? I happen to have been the one selected for physiology. But this one question stuck in my mind after I took that test. It was a young boy who was growing up, meeting developmental milestones, and then regressed. I picked the wrong answer. In the answer choice, autism was one of them. I did not choose autism. I picked pervasive developmental delay. I was very confident that it had to be that. What I did not know at that moment was that the DSM criteria for diagnosing autism had changed. And so it wasn't called pervasive developmental disorder anymore. And so I was talking about that one question. I don't know why that one question stuck in my mind. And so I was one of those students that I will take a test, and a lot of people come ask me what were the questions. I somehow was able to remember all the questions on all my tests.
No wonder you're a doctor.
And so they'll come ask me. And this one question, really, it stuck in my mind. So I asked my friend, and I said, what was the answer to this question? He looked at me, he said, autism. I said, no, it's not autism. Why would it be autism? And we argued, and I'm like, no, it's not autism. It can't be. He said, no, it is autism. I cried. Just for that one question, I cried. And I said, how could I miss it? And he was like, wait, is that the only question you're worried about? If it's just that one question, you can't fail the test. I'm like, yeah, but I won't get the score I want. And he's like, no, it's okay. How many other questions? And we start going over questions that I could remember. Fast forward after that, I meet my first. I get to correct that test question in real life when I had my first son. Exact same scenario. I didn't miss it this time. I got it correct. I was the only one who got it correct. Everybody else around me could not see this thing that I was seeing. And so the game of, oh no, it's because you're studying for the boards. Oh no, it's this medical thing in your head. Everything became, it's in your head. It's not real. It can't be real. Another bias, that just because you are a medical doctor, you don't get afflicted or get these afflictions that you actually treat other people with. No, we're human. We get the exact same issues. I get headaches, I get nervous, I get anxious, I get scared. I have real life situations. And being a mother of children with different abilities, autism to be specific, is real. I get the exact same challenges and the exact same fears. I had my 2 other kids with the exact same scenario. If I had to wait for med school, trust me, I would have failed with all of them. But this was another thing, another bias that I had to break was the fact that society looks at someone like me raising multiple children with different abilities and especially autism. And they're like, no, I can't do the work because I'm already overworked. I got written off for a lot of jobs. I got written off for a lot of programs because they felt like I could not meet their demands. It took for this one person, this one doctor. I took my second son for his assessment. And he looked at how I completed the questionnaires and he asked me, what do you do for a living? And I said, I'm a housewife. He said, no way. I said, yes way. I'm a stay-at-home mom. Here I was, an MD with a fancy degree. It was sitting on the shelf. And I was a stay-at-home mom. I understand what it's like giving up your career, putting it to the side to stay laser focused and realizing what your purpose is. Society, and when I say society, I mean right within my environment, when the camp is within, family, looked at it and said, what a waste of knowledge, and failed to understand that that purpose was setting me on a path to put me in line in what I'm currently doing today. Yeah. And so this one guy looked at the way I filled out this questionnaire and he said, wow, I asked the question because I have never seen anyone fill out a questionnaire and be this detailed and have so much knowledge about autism. And he asked again, what do you do for a living? And I said, well, I am a stay-at-home mom. That is true. And he said, no, do you have a medical background? Another bias to be broken because one, I'm a Black woman. I'm sitting in there in my kaba. And then I had on an afro. So doctor is not what he's thinking of. He gave me all the medical professions that you could think of, except doctor. He said, you're a pharmacist, a nurse. He named it, every single one of them. And I looked at him and I'm in my mind, I'm like, wow, I guess he can't think I'm a doctor, right? So I told him, no, none of the above, none of all those things you've mentioned. And he said, well, you must have a medical background. I said, yes, I'm a medical doctor. He stopped, like, whoa, really? Yes. Fast forward after that encounter, I get a call from this same man asking me, and he said, our organization, the medical group that I took my son to, they have an autism program. He was chosen to run that program, but he didn't think he'll be the best fit. I think you will be the best fit. I said, no, that was not my dream, hopes, and ambitions, sir. I have other dreams. This is not one of it. He said, no, just apply, try it. If you don't like it, you could leave us anytime. 6 years and counting, I am still there. and they promised to never let me go. And they said, even if I move to Cameroon, they will go find me and bring me right back.
That's good.
So when I kept hearing from a lot of parents, even parents I talk to at work, my line of work requires me to reach out to parents and kind of get a little bit of what their concerns are. I kind of set the stage and it gives me an idea as to who we get to see now and who we can give time in terms of let's throw in a little bit of therapy for this child and then have them come back to us in 3 months. So we kind of gauge, I'm able to do that. When I talk to parents, the first thing they tell me is, you won't understand what we go through. I hear that every single day. You won't understand what we go through. You see, because you're a doctor, you won't understand what we go through because you don't have a child with autism. You don't understand. It's only when I tell them, well, unfortunately, I do understand what you're going through. That's because I don't have only one. See, the reason I tell them 3 is because a lot of times they feel that the one, and not to minimize anybody's one, but when a parent comes at me and tells me, you won't understand nothing of what I'm talking about because you don't have to go through this. I tell them, well, think about going through it 3 times. That's what I go through on a daily basis. I do the exact same thing like any other mother. I do homework with my kids. I don't have a nanny. The expectation is that, oh, you're a doctor. You have, no, I don't have anybody who cleans for me. I don't have anybody who cares for my kids. I do it all. I do the laundry. I do the homework. I sit in every single parent-teacher conference. I attend every meeting that you could think of. I drive them to therapy. I sit in the therapy room. I take notes. I still do it. A lot of times my workplace, they're like, we don't even know where she gets the time. But that's because work doesn't feel like work to me. It's my purpose. And so I just do it. So even if I'm not doing my regular 9 to 5, I'm still doing the 9 to 5 outside of that, even if it's just running my personal business as an autism consultant. I take calls from Cameroon, I take calls from the UK, I take calls from Canada. At the same time, I have to run not only my profession as a career, but also I have to live as a mother and a wife at home. I have all of that to take care of. So yes, I am human and I have the exact same challenges. I do cry sometimes, yes. I get nervous as well. I get anxious and I have fears. I fear. My first is going to be a teenager soon. I have fears as well. What is life out there for him? What would it look like for him to be out there in society? And what does life look like for him? If I'm not here, I have all the same fears. So all those things, yes, are real. And I definitely, I would say if I had to end, I'm gonna make mine real quick, but I'm constantly breaking biases at work. I have a little bit, I don't want to call it rebellious side of me, but I always make sure that I find ways to make sure that these biases are definitely broken. And yes, I do go to work with my natural, I do. I don't know if anyone understands doing that in the South, because I am in the South, living in the Southern state. As a Black woman, it's a challenge. It's a challenge being a Black woman anywhere. But when you live in the South, in the United States of America, it's a totally different ballgame. Wearing natural to work. So I was that one that, even though the memo went out, I did the opposite. Don't wear natural hair, I wore my natural hair. And I didn't wear it as an afro, but I made sure I had the two-strand twist in it. So I really look like the primary school girl from Cameroon who just came in. That's exactly how I looked. And that memo got changed immediately because I said, no, that's not acceptable. And then I went with my afro and it changed. And a lot of nurses picked on it. They're like, wait, Dr. Kilo can wear her afro. Why can't we wear ours? I'm like, girl, you should wear yours. And that's how the movement started at work. And everybody was sporting an afro at work. And the other thing too, being in the South, is this. The bow tie is reserved for the white male in the South. And it's also for the elite white male in the South. Oh yes, you will find me in the bow tie as well. And living in Atlanta, it could go two ways. They could either think you're in the other tribe. And I'm like, I love my people from the other tribe, but I'm sorry, I also love my bow tie and I will wear it. I don't have to be a white male to wear a bow tie in the South. I just have to like to wear it.
That's right.
And so absolutely to all my mothers out there who are raising children on the autism spectrum, I would say, keep your head up, be proud of what you are doing because you are trusted with those souls. Continue to be the best guide you can be for them. Mm-hmm. And understand that in as much as others respect what you're choosing and how you choose to raise that child, respect other people's choosing as to what they want to do with their child. I had to learn that. That was the one thing I had to learn. And when we all have that mutual respect, it makes for a fantastic community and great fellowship and bonding with everyone. And so, yes, I am human. I have the same fears. I have the same challenges. And it's not easy, but it's doable. Thank you so much.
My sister friend, AC, you know what you've done. I'm stealing her. You know me. You know me. I'm stealing about 18 women tonight. Anyway, I'm not stealing them. I'm adding them into our circle. Thank you, AC, for this opportunity. And to you, Dr. Kilo, if I could hug you, I could do. I love your glasses. I love the bow tie.
Stylish. I love the style.
I love everything and the intelligence. Above all, you are very brave, you are resilient, and you are authentic. I think that's the power of being you, because when you were talking, I was thinking there should be a spiritual force behind this. And honestly, whatever force is driving you and making you do the things you do, don't stop for anything. You are that woman. And since we are still in the healthcare sector, we'll move over to Kemi Adeboyega. We'll be talking to us about the biases in the health sector. We all understand that everybody should receive good healthcare. Yeah, that should be the way it is, regardless of your gender, your race, or whatever, how you look. But unfortunately, certain implicit biases still exist in the healthcare sector. And we have Kemi today to tell us this. Is that true? Is that something we should break?
I'm just looking at the list. It looks like Kemi is not available.
Okay, so do we move to the next speaker? Like, seriously, this cuts my attention. Last year, Festus, we had this lady. It's like we saved the best for last. Everybody was good. But, you know, when you are the last, sometimes you think, why was I the last? And looking at this list again, it seems Effie Grant is the last speaker before we move to the audience. And she'll be talking about creating the fertile spaces to break these biases. Oh, then I'm all ears, Effie. I just want to understand what should be done. What do we need to do? How do we create these opportunities to be able to break the biases out there? Do we have Effie?
Nope, it's like she's not.
Hi, I'm here.
Right.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I have to apologize because of the timing. I've been caught up in something else at the moment as well. So you might get some noises, but you'll have to forgive me for that. Right, so I wanted to speak today on how we create fertile spaces for breaking the bias. Now, I, as a young lady, started my period when I was about 9 years old. I'm in nearly my 40s now. So as you can imagine, that's a very long time. A lot of the time, we fall off women or young girls when it comes to that time of the month. And as we know, our society has different ways of describing this rather very important time within our life cycle, really. And a lot of the time, it has come with a stigma, one that is unfortunate, but the reality of each woman and girl in our society. And so for me, I want to tackle how then do we go about to create those fertile spaces that will allow us to be better beings. And so there is a lady called Betty who describes having her period as like your uterus has gained actual sentience and is trying to claw itself out of your body for the great escape to freedom. And so this is how a woman in a period describes the pain that she feels. I believe strongly that every woman who menstruates should receive compassion. And that will only come about if we can, first and foremost, educate ourselves and our society. Because although every woman goes through a period, there are some who unfortunately have the added agony of going through pain where it is described as dysmenorrhea. And in recent times, as recent as 2018, research has found that this pain is as equal as having a heart attack. And so if you imagine that for those women who have this pain, for the first 3 days at least, they're having a heart attack, 24/7 heart attack for 3 whole days. But what do? Oh, take some paracetamol or aspirin and get on with it. You carry on doing the daily chores. Everything else is as normal. Pardon me, let's let these ladies go.
Exactly, we were all in.
Okay. Okay. So yes, as I was saying, if any man or anybody at all was having a heart attack, they will not be told to just get on with it, take an aspirin and keep on sorting the kids out, going to work, just getting about and doing the usual. If you're having a heart attack, you're calling the ambulance, you're calling for help. And everybody else around you shows great amount of compassion towards you at that time and a great deal of care. And so why can't we do that for women who have, unfortunately, got that condition? And so I believe that, yes, education will be paramount so that we can come about and settle the kind of discourse and dismissive attitudes that we have for women with this condition. Now, I think once the education is done, communication is important. Communication is important because all I have to do is say to my boss or my husband, I'm not having a good day. I'm having a bad period. And that should be all that there is to have to say. And then we can expect the same measure of compassion that a person suffering from a heart attack should receive. Now, I've already alluded to the fact that I had an early period and I am one of those sufferers. And I had a very supportive brother who saw my pain. And sometimes the painkillers don't work. It doesn't matter how many I took, they just didn't do the trick. And he would take the time to make me a stiff drink just to make sure that I could go off to bed. This is the kind of environment that I would encourage both men and women to have to do. See the need, have the compassion, and take action. Now, I think once we have communicated well, because if I said I had a migraine, people would go, oh, have you taken this? Or have you tried this? Or have you tried that? Let's let that communication flow in that regard. What has your mother gone through? What has your sister gone through? What has your auntie gone through? What kind of remedy or support can you offer to the other woman who is going through it? Because we need to get to the point where women will not be hindered by the stigma that comes with having your period, to be able to just say, I have a migraine, and get offered solutions. So that if I say I'm having a bad period, it's as regular as saying I have a headache or a migraine. I think that it's also practical things. And I've alluded to my brother, offering me a stiff drink to help me sleep. But we have to also be aware that even at this time, there is still a lot of period poverty. And it was very pleasing that in my location now, when I went into the loos, they're offering free sanitary products for every woman to use. And so in the quietness of our hearts and in all of our actions, I hope that we would continue to have to think about these things and be able to put little measures in place. Every little helps. We say it every day, but do we actually think about it? If we can put the little actions into place, make a stiff drink for another woman, offer solutions, create that fertile space for them to be able to perhaps take a day off, work from home, just give them that space to go through that period. No stigmas, no stereotypes, no biases. And I think that together we can all create a better space for all of us and get rid of that stigma. Now, as an activist on racism, I could not help finishing this without pointing out this week's issue on child Q. For a child, a 15-year-old Black girl, to be strip searched by Metropolitan Police and 2 women at that, it's a shame. It's so terrible to have to think that in 2022, this should happen. And so if you reflect back on what I've said, that research says that any woman who has that period pain is having a heart attack. Let's just take this scenario that that child, 15-year-old, was having a heart attack, and to have been taken through that trauma on top, that is inhumane.
Yeah.
And so wherever you are, speak up, Let your voice be heard. It's not about shouting or screaming. It's about taking the necessary actions. Speak to your MP, write to them, go to your district commanders, the people who are in charge and need to take corrective measures is what we need to do. Because shouting and banging on doors on the streets is not going to cut it. Absolutely. Real constructive action is what we need. And so I hope that this will help all of us to show compassion to all of our women who have menstruation and get rid of that period stigma. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you so much, Effie, for that little TED talk you've given to us again today, and on the menstrual cycle of the woman. And I think this is something that needs to be discussed. It needs a level of education, especially for some of us men, to actually know it and not just make cheap recommendations like, well, just take paracetamol or ibuprofen and stuff like that, but actually get with grips with the things, what you actually go through. I think it is important in this day and age. It is essential so that we can be like your brother, to offer help and support the way that we can to get this well going, so that we can also be of support to women out there. So thank you so much for creating this fertile space to break the bias. It is much appreciated, and thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're tuning in just now, joining us, this is the Voice of Hope Media, where we strive to educate, empower, and inspire by giving it a voice. We've heard from a lot of speakers today. It's been such a blessing to hear you all share your experiences, your knowledge, and also to educate the entire fan base out there. One other speaker we have is going to be from the audience, and it's Fuka Relindes. Now, I know and I believe that no one should minimize or even talk down on your experience, whatsoever that level or degree of experience is. No one should minimize it. So whatever experience you have in life, it is unique. It is very, very peculiar to you, and no one should minimize that experience. So when you come to share your experience, when you come to talk about what you've gone through, what you've experienced, let nobody from the outside who's not been in your shoes or felt what you felt tell you any less or minimize the power of your experience, because that is what makes you unique. That is what makes you stand out. And even more important, that is what you are overcoming of that situation is actually what puts you on this pedestal, on this platform, on this echelon of society, that people have to look at you as a beacon of hope for so many. So use your experiences, share your experiences, talk about them so that we all can learn from it. So now over to you, Fuka Relindes. We would like to hear your own experience and what you think about breaking biases.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Festus.
Thank you
for giving me the floor. My name is Fuka Relindes, and I am a special teacher. Personally, I have not had a difficulty with menstrual cycle and menses flow and all that, but I want to come in with a group of persons
not
who
to cut
are
you short, Fuka Relindes. Can we please have your video turned on so that we can actually put an image to the voice? Our audience would love to also see you, so that when they see you along the way, they know who they were listening to, if that's possible anyway.
Yeah, it's possible.
Thank you.
I think I'm here now.
Yes, okay. Bravo.
Okay, thank you very much. I was saying that personally, I have not had some biases, some stigma on issues pertaining to menses, menstrual cycle, menstrual flow, and all that. But I deal with a group, a very vulnerable group of people who cannot actually express themselves when they have, let me say, the menstrual pain, when they have even their cycles, they cannot, they don't know anything about it. And this experience is sometimes very traumatic to me, because you don't know how to bring it to the population. You don't know how to bring it even to their own parents. I'm talking about children with special needs. Imagine a child who has a problem with communication. Imagine a child who does not even talk and who is getting to menstruate for the first time, who is seeing her menses for the first time. Imagine what happens if it starts flowing when she is in public, in school, for example. What we only do at that point is dress the child up, clean the child up. But now, how do we make that child to know that this thing that you are seeing shall be coming now more often? Every month, you are going to see you are going to have this very experience. How do we do it? That's where we have a very challenging situation, because sometimes the parents, even if they are willing to communicate this to their children, even if they are willing to educate their children on this, they don't have the necessary tools or the means of communicating with them. I take an example of a child with autism who, first of all, communication is a difficulty. In this situation, you see the child crying, the child manifesting some pains if he has a pain, or feeling uncomfortable. Now, to make that child to be able to accept or to know that this is going to happen often or quite often, the first thing, as we say, is put yourself in the shoe of this child. If I were in the place of this child, how am I going to handle this? Certainly you behave like him. And then if you put yourself in the shoe of the child, then you will not feel discouraged. You will not feel embarrassed by the fact that the child or the person is feeling this way. Now, when you know that, you condition the child, make the child to know that, okay, after this month, certainly this other time is going to be like that. And to dress them up, of course, we are going to break barriers. We are going to remove the stigma. We are going to all those things that many other people have said. We are going to put them in place. But is the child aware of the fact that when blood is flowing from this part of my body, I have to keep myself clean. I have to protect myself. I have to. How do you make that child to do that? Firstly, you could use buddies. A buddy is maybe a child of the same age, a peer of the same age that already knows how to dress himself. You make him to adapt, to dress himself in front, or herself, sorry, in front of the case in hand. Like that, through imitation, he may learn. The parents equally can teach the child, help the child to actually dress themselves up, put the part as necessary as they have to. And now if there are pains, if the child is feeling some pains, you try to soothe the pains by maybe, I don't know, drugs. There are drugs, no doubt. You can give drugs, you can use other soothing therapies to help the child contain his pain, not to stigmatize and not to feel bad or complain about the child complaining. Because these children, they really have some difficulties that it's difficult for them to pass out the message that they have in them. The pain that they feel, the frustration that they feel, and all this is difficult for them to actually put it out to a third person that this is the situation. So now what we need to do is condition them with love, condition them, make them to know that, okay, this is what will be happening all the time. When it happens, This is where this is how you clean yourself. This is how you dress yourself to avoid any embarrassment, and don't feel bad if it is coming for the first time or the second time. Know that it is natural. It is not wound, because some people think they are wounding themselves because of the pain that they feel. I think I just have to be this brief, because it's not really easy to wear the shoes of those children, children with special needs, especially children with communication disorders, hearing and hearing impairment.
Thank you. It's good. It's really good. Thank you so much. Thank you, Fuka, for that really good thing. It's good for us to also remember that it's difficult for us to discuss things when we are not in the shoes of some of these kids who go through these challenges in life. We should be mindful of that, and it is really, really good. Now, we've really gone way out of time. We realize that we've had some issues along the way that causes this delay, but regardless, it has been an eye-opener. It has been a blessing. It has been thoughtful. It's been, the ideas have been one that has been mind-provoking. It's made us to think deeper than we would usually or normally do on the day-to-day basis. So we say thank you to all our guests. Thank you so much for the time, for your patience, for the knowledge shared, for your contributing factors. Thank you so much. And to my co-host, she is better placed to talk about it than I would try to do it any justice.
Festus, you are the last man standing. You're a cool man. Honestly, it has been an evening of everything I can imagine. I always say, put me in the midst of women and men that I can learn from. And this is just one of those opportunities. I can't really stress enough with the work going on, because listening to every person who have spoken, I understand we have a lot of people on the right track, everybody following their visions and doing all the kind, the responsibility, the flexibility, the adaptability. Look at what happened today. Some people just came to mess it all up. But because when we fall forward, we couldn't give up, and we could still come back stronger than even before. Thank you guys so very much. It has been an honor for the second time to sit here with you all. So I can just say, for all these reasons, we just decided, AC, because this was her dream, Festus, you were very right. She has some bright dreams. She decided to make something significant. It was a small gesture, but honestly, it is becoming something bigger than we thought. AC, I'm not gonna let the cat out of the bag, but thank you guys so very much. And I'll always say International Women's Day, it may has been over, because some people think it's all about the 8th of March every year. But trust me, we don't need to stop here. We keep moving forward, because 365 days in a year, you girl, you are great. You are that woman. Keep making your community proud and keep making yourself proud. Thank you so very much, Festus. It was an opportunity to co-host this with you. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Asimbeng, if you don't mind, this is the time where you tell us if we can go or if we can stay.
I wish I had the power to let everyone stay here today. Then I will do just that. I don't know where to start, but I have to start somewhere. And I'll start with a thank you. A massive thank you and a virtual hug to each and every one of you here today. Yes, I don't know how we managed it. As Emilian said, when we fall forward, and we fall very hard, so that when we are standing, we stand up with a new purpose. We stand up with new intentions and bright new dreams. And it's exactly what happened today. I don't know where those guys came from, but here we are. We handled it like, which word should I use? We handled it like women, like people who have learned how to break those biases. We did. So a special thank you to each and every one of you for being patient, for being here today. This is the Voice of Hope Media. It says the Voice of Hope Media with AC Mbeng. Yes, it is with AC Mbeng, but it is not for AC Mbeng. It is for each and every one of us, because this is a safe space where we give a voice to those issues, to those topics where most of us consider them as emotional, as sensitive, as taboo, because those are our biases. That's how we look at those issues. So we have to give a voice to these issues so as to empower others to be able to speak up, to be able to speak out, knowing that they will be heard and they won't be judged or stigmatized. And we've done just that today. We've given a voice to issues which, under normal circumstances, people will not give a voice to them. We've talked about menstruation. We've talked about disability, autism, all forms. We've talked about women in politics. We've talked about female genital mutilation and a lot of others. We've met different people from around the world here today. Who would have imagined that just from a virtual platform like this one, we could be able to touch at least one life? And I know we have changed the mentality out there. I always say on this platform that when you join, when you watch, don't worry about how many people are watching, how many people have joined in or have shared. Worry about what you are going to learn, unlearn, and relearn from watching a program on this platform. This platform started because at some point I discovered that every experience that many people will call taboo or many people call sad are those issues which many do not want to talk about them publicly. But these are issues, these are topics that are happening to each and every one of us, either directly or indirectly. So we are here giving a voice to these issues. And I should say this is just the beginning. So my word of encouragement to each and every one of you, especially to women, I am going to read it out so that people watching will know, will take every word that I will say. So women are the most incredible beings on earth. They are capable of persevering and going through some of the most difficult moments in life without complaining or even quitting. As women, most of us have experienced child loss, either through miscarriage, through abortion, through SIDS, through neonatal death. Some have had premature babies who are growing up with disabilities due to the devastating effects of extreme premature birth. Some have never heard the cry of a baby, while some are still out there searching for that cry of a baby. Despite all these difficulties, we do not throw pity parties or seek sympathy. We allow ourselves to feel the emotions. It is in feeling these emotions that we get to understand why and what we are going through, which will eventually lead to awareness and acceptance. Despite this, some of us still struggle on a daily basis. We are made to shut down. We are being stigmatized. Some are being abused, both physically, emotionally, and even financially. The question now is, how long are we going to continue to be in silence? Let us all rise up and give a voice to our pain. Let us put a voice to all these issues we face, which are baptized as sensitive, emotional, or sad, which we are ashamed of talking about. It is high time we started talking about depression, mental health, child loss, miscarriages, depression or disability, autism. It's high time we started discussing these issues in public, because if we can sit publicly and discuss football and discuss politics and talk about every other thing openly, then we should also discuss these issues, these emotional topics, sensitive topics, openly, in a way that we will be able to heal ourselves, heal others, and look for strategies and means to help ourselves. Let us be the voice of hope and empowerment, because I know what we give a voice to has the power to transform our lives. So let us break the cycle of silence by putting a voice to our stories, Because when we share, we heal ourselves, we heal others, and we give others the chance to free themselves and connect freely with each other. So together, let us break this bias. Let us break them by not staying silent, by speaking out, seeking the help that we need. If you are not feeling okay, you go out there and seek. Tell that you are not feeling okay. Do not stay in silence. Do not die because of shame or because of what somebody else will say or think about you. We are in this together. So let it continue. We started this last year, and this is season 2. Our aim is for next year. Festus said he dreams the dreams and he allows me to run with the dreams. Yes, he actually had a dream that next year, 2023, March 2023, we will be gathering like this in a hall here in the UK face to face. And I am going to run with that dream. We are going to make it happen. Yes, it is the voice of hope with AC Mbeng, but it is the voice of hope for everybody because we are the voice of hope and empowerment. We are the leading, I was forgetting that word, the leading voice of hope and empowerment to individuals facing challenging and complex life issues, including special education and needs. We are in this together and we are breaking these biases. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.